He had a gun pressed against his head, yet wore the look of staring at a dead man. Faced with death threats from 4 armed robbers, he stayed calm and pressed his watch to start the timer.
You have to decide your fate. 9 seconds.
9 seconds passed in a flash. George took them down easily. Only the gang boss still clung to life, struggling weakly on the ground. He picked up a shotgun at his feet, then cured the guy's hemorrhoids in the most brutal way. Watching him squirm painfully on the ground, George tapped the ground with the gun barrel, cheering on his stubborn will to live. These men acted arrogant all the time, and now finally tasted despair before death. No matter what happens, hell will be their final destination. He took the car keys from the men, but as he stepped outside, he saw the old man's grandson sitting in the car. George would never harm a child. He just told the boy to stay still. He had only walked a few steps away when a gunshot suddenly rang out. The shooter turned out to be the boy. Seeing George come back with a gun, the boy ran away in terror, but George never pulled the trigger. He could not believe such a young kid would try to hurt someone, yet he had no time to dwell on it. The bullet pierced his back and damaged his organs. He had to leave the island right away. Driven by strong willpower, he boarded the last ferry and collapsed completely once on shore. He thought he would die on this unknown road until a kind man drove by and found him barely clinging to life. His wounds were far too severe. There was no time to head to a hospital, so he was taken to a local town doctor's home. The old Dr. Enzo struggled greatly to finally save George's life. When he woke up again, 2.5 days had gone by. Seeing it was a gunshot wound, the old doctor asked him a serious question.
Ha salvato un uomo buono o uno cattivo?
George was lost for words for a moment, and simply replied he did not know. He woke up abruptly in the night, and saw his backpack, lying right where he left it. He finally felt relieved. After 2 weeks of recovery, he could walk with crutches. Shocked by such rapid healing, the old doctor grew more suspicious, realizing his guest was no ordinary person. This place lies in Italy. This small quiet town was just as the doctor described, with pleasant weather and honest friendly folks. Even George, a stranger here, felt the warmth from locals and kindness everywhere. Yet this peaceful-looking town was far from a pure land. One day George went out for a walk, and witnessed darkness beneath the sunshine. A biker gang collected protection money from shop owners, and their leader bullied the fish shop owner brutally. George clearly heard screams from inside, but held back from stepping in. He was just a passing traveler. Drawing too much attention would bring trouble. When the thugs took the money and prepared to leave, he turned to memorize each of their arrogant faces. The shop owner walked outside afterward, covered in bruises from the beating, but nodded to George to say he was fine. George nodded back politely, his eyes still fixed on the thugs. They had landed on his kill list, and their days were numbered. The gang leader felt George's hostility, but paid it no mind. He acted so fearless because his half-brother Vincent ran a branch of the Camorra family, one of Italy's biggest mafia groups. They planned to take over the whole town, claiming to build resorts and casinos, but their true motives remained hidden. When a local refused to sell his land, the gang acted ruthlessly and hanged the man's disabled father. They used this cruel warning to force residents to give up their land. The bullied fish shop owner was one of those who stood in their way. That night the old doctor changed his dressings and found his wounds had fully healed. George grew curious and asked. He had suffered serious gunshot wounds, so why did the doctor risk everything to save him? Was it just professional duty? Did he never fear letting a dangerous man in?
Remember what I asked you?
Yeah. Am I a good man or bad man? You asked me.
And you said you didn't know.
I don't know.
Only a good man would have said that.
He did not want to bring trouble to the doctor, so he decided to move to an inn. As he reached the town square, he saw crowds gathering in one direction. The fish shop was engulfed in flames. It was the couple's lifelong hard work. The owner rushed to charge into the fire, while his wife knelt on the ground crying in despair. George knew the gang was behind this cruelty. He turned around and saw them watching nearby. He did not attack right away. Instead, he went to the church to pray for the bloodshed that was coming. Meanwhile, town police officer Ezio found clues from surveillance footage. The camera clearly captured the arson and the van used by the culprits. He called to check the vehicle information. This single phone call almost destroyed his entire family. The next day Ezio went to pick up his daughter from school. The teacher told him his daughter had already been taken by a fellow officer. He sensed immediate danger and raced home as fast as he could. His worst fears came true. 2 strange men sat in his living room, while another held his wife and daughter hostage. He stepped forward to rescue them, and was knocked out with a heavy club.
Papà, che ha fatto una grandissima cazzata, no? Ha fatto la telefonata che non doveva fare.
The man who came to threaten him was Draven, younger brother of mafia boss Vincent, a cold-blooded ruthless brute. He came personally because Ezio was gathering evidence on the arson case. Draven beat him severely, then grabbed his daughter, warning Ezio to stay out of their business, or his wife and daughter would face the same brutal beating. The group left soon after. Later Ezio went to the old doctor's home to treat his wounds. George saw the whole scene and learned from the doctor. The kind man who saved his life was none other than Ezio. George could no longer stand aside. That night Ezio's family dined in a restaurant. The gang showed up to pick another fight. The earlier threat was just a test. Their real goal was to force Ezio to use his police status to arrange a large number of boats for transporting drugs and contraband. Silence fell over the whole restaurant. Everyone held their breath nervously. Draven smiled proudly until he saw the foreign old man staring at him like he was already dead. Draven felt uneasy under the gaze, but relied on his numbers and sat across from the old man. As the boss's brother, he could not lose face in front of his men. He thought the stranger was easy to bully, never realizing he was walking straight to his death. He raised a rude hand gesture and was instantly restrained.
There, right there.
George gripped his nerve hard. The pain nearly made him lose control. Following George's orders, he chased all his men outside and handed over his pistol. Avoiding total humiliation, he fled the restaurant in full view, still refusing to learn his lesson. Taking George's mercy as an insult, he gathered his men to seek revenge. Before their plan began, a van rushed straight toward them. After the violent crash, Draven was crushed between vehicles. Everyone inside the van died on the spot. Draven was terrified beyond words, but it was already too late. George walked over holding a wine bottle and struck him hard. Draven pulled out a dagger at once. George raised his hands and smiled. The outcome was never in doubt. Draven's arms were twisted backward. The switchblade in his hand became the weapon that killed him. In his final moments, he realized he had messed with the wrong person. George watched him draw his last breath, then left calmly into the night. The next day police arrived at the scene. Seeing the bodies on the ground, they felt quiet relief. These evil criminals had finally gotten what they deserved, yet they knew the trouble was far from over. The victim was Mafia boss Vincent's own brother. He would never let this go easily. The police chief hurried to Vincent's mansion. A funeral for his brother was underway. The chief urged him not to act recklessly. Their business was the top priority. A large-scale conflict would draw attention from Interpol. As a mafia leader, if he let his brother's murder slide, he would be nothing more than a coward. The well-meaning advice only fueled Vincent's rage. No progress on finding the killer, and now he came preaching kindness. Vincent flew into a fury and drove a knife straight through the chief's palm. He pinned the hand in place. His men pulled out another blade. No anesthesia was given. They cut the entire hand off brutally, telling him to rush to the hospital. Maybe the hand could be reattached. Meanwhile, George rested in a small inn and started to make his plans. He used an encrypted number to contact CIA agent Peta and sent her the coordinates of the gang hideout from earlier. He hung up the phone right after. Peta tracked the location quickly and led her team to the hideout. They were shocked by what they found. Over 100 kilos of drugs were seized, along with 100 million in cash. What shocked them most were 25 bodies at the scene, all killed with the same method. Peta followed the clues to find George. He had intentionally led her here. He knew all about Vincent's schemes. The man used island development as a cover to run massive drug operations. All the money he earned went toward funding terrorist activities. George's goal was simple: use the CIA to wipe out this criminal syndicate completely. Using George's intel, Peta deployed special forces to raid Vincent's main drug factory. Anyone who resisted was shot dead. The operation was swift and decisive. Key gang members were arrested, along with another 100 million in stolen money. Just then Peta got a call from George, warning her to stay extremely cautious. Vincent had controlled this island town for years. He was far more dangerous than he seemed. Right after the call ended, a bomb exploded violently. The blast caused many casualties. Peta was rushed to hospital for emergency treatment. She had underestimated Vincent's madness, yet worse was still to come. To find his brother's killer, Vincent took dozens of men and kidnapped Ezio and his whole family. He stood in the town square and shouted threats, demanding locals hand over the killer. Anyone hiding or protecting the suspect would be executed along with Ezio's family. He would kill every resident one by one. When no one dared to speak up, he fired a gunshot next to Ezio's ear. Ezio curled on the ground in agony. Vincent warned the next shot would be to the head. At this critical moment, George stepped out holding 2 guns to save the man who saved his life and protect all innocent townsfolk. He chose to lay down his weapons. The killer stood right in front of him. Vincent pressed his gun to George's head and cocked the hammer with his thumb. At the very last second, the honest old doctor fired the first shot. Encouraged by his courage, locals who suffered under the mafia for years stood up one after another, holding up their phones to record Vincent's crimes. CIA forces were also approaching the town. Filled with rage but powerless, Vincent had to retreat for now. Before leaving, he shouted threats, vowing he would return for revenge.
I'll be here.
I'll leave this place like a war blew through it.
I'll be waiting for you. Hurry up.
Boss, ce ne dobbiamo andare.
I'll see you soon. I'll see you very soon.
Hurry up, sooner than you think.
Boos echoed all around. Vincent left with his men in defeat. He would never get his revenge. George would never give him the chance. Back at his mansion, Vincent flew into a rage. He ordered his men to bring heavy weapons at dawn to wipe out the entire town. He never knew justice was already on its way. A guard on night watch lit a cigarette to stay awake. As everyone knows, smoking is truly harmful to health. George slipped into the mansion like a ghost. Patrolling guards noticed nothing, before being struck down instantly. 3 men upstairs played cards, when the power suddenly cut out. 1 man walked to the balcony to check, seeing nothing unusual outside. As he turned back, death came for him. George moved quietly through the rooms, avoiding every surveillance camera, and picked up a wooden stick. The security guard watching monitors suddenly felt a cold chill. He checked the screen. A dark figure stood right behind him. He did not even scream before the stick pierced his throat. A cowardly gang member sensed trouble. Watching his partner die, he feared he would be next. George granted his wish, using steel wire to end his life, sending them both to hell. Vincent slept soundly until he felt something cold on his face. He turned over and saw wet stains on his pillow. He sniffed the liquid and realized disaster was near. He lifted his head. One of his most loyal guards hung from the ceiling. Vincent was terrified out of his mind. He grabbed a submachine gun and called out for each of his men. No one answered his cries. Glass cut deep into his feet, yet fear of death hurt far more. He worked up courage to go downstairs. All his men lay motionless on the floor, appearing to be asleep. His arrogance vanished completely. Driven insane by terror, he fired shots wildly into the air. As he turned around, a powerful punch knocked him down. When he woke again, he was tied tightly to a pillar. His stomach was filled with the drugs he produced himself.
You have less than 6 minutes before the pills stop your heart.
George said nothing and untied his restraints, confused about his intent. Vincent ran outside to survive. George followed slowly like the Reaper. He let the man use his final minutes to experience true despair. The drugs took full effect. Each step Vincent took was agony. He begged for someone to save him, but a cruel, ruthless criminal deserved no kindness from anyone. The man who ruled this town never imagined he would crawl on the ground like a stray dog. The drugs fully kicked in. Vincent could not move an inch, burdened by endless sins. He died on the cold, muddy street.